I was just delivering a package. Another name, another doorbell. But when she opened the door, something about her stopped me. The way she said, "Don't rush." It didn't sound like advice. It sounded personal. I didn't know it then, but that single moment, that single voice, was about to change everything I thought I understood about love, timing, and silence. I told myself it was just coincidence, that I wasn't looking for her when I took the next delivery in that same neighborhood. But when her name showed up again on the screen, Han, room 304, I didn't even try to hide the small, ridiculous smile that tugged at my mouth. The elevator smelled faintly of disinfectant and paper. I checked my reflection in the metal panel and hated how much I cared. When the doors opened, her hallway was exactly as I remembered. Quiet, with that soft hum from somewhere behind the walls, like an apartment that never really sleeps. She opened the door before I could knock twice. "June, right?" The sound of my name from her lips made my throat tighten. I hadn't told her last time. She must have read it from the tag on my uniform. "Yeah," I said, trying to sound casual. "Just another package." Her living room was brighter today, sunlight spilling across stacks of papers. A cat curled on the window seat. She wore a loose gray cardigan, hair half down, strands falling over her cheek. Not deliberate, just real. She motioned for me to set the box on the table. "Thank you." I didn't expect the delivery to be this fast. "It wasn't far," I said. "Guess I didn't rush." That made her laugh. Quiet, but real. It startled me how much I wanted to hear it again. She sat down, fingers resting lightly on a mug of tea. "You remember things?" she said, looking at me in that way again. Steady, unreadable. "I try to." For a moment, there was only the sound of her spoon tapping against porcelain. Something in her expression shifted, like a curtain fluttering just enough to see what's behind. "You look young," she said softly. "Too young to sound that tired." I shrugged, unsure if she was teasing or worrying. "Work'll do that." She nodded, but her eyes drifted away, like she was watching something I couldn't see. The cat stirred. The clock ticked. I noticed the faint tremor in her hand when she set the cup down. "You okay?" I asked. She hesitated, then smiled again, different this time. "Some days just feel heavier than others." I didn't know what to say, so I didn't. I just stood there, holding the edge of the box I'd already delivered, as if it gave me a reason to stay. She looked at me then, really looked. Her eyes were clear but tired. Her lips parted like she was about to say something, but she didn't. The silence stretched between us, thick but not uncomfortable, just full. When I finally stepped back toward the door, she spoke. Not to stop me, not to invite me, but just enough to keep me wondering. "Take care, June." That voice again. Low, careful, leaving space for what she didn't say. She looked at me like she wanted to say something, but didn't. And that silence felt louder than words. It was raining the next time I saw her. One of those slow, unhurried rains that seemed to soak through everything. Not heavy enough for thunder, but enough to make the air smell like wet concrete and old leaves. Her package had gotten water on it somewhere in transit, so I wanted to make sure she got it directly. That was the only reason I told myself I went upstairs instead of leaving it with the guard. When she opened the door, her hair was damp too, strands clinging to her temple. She laughed lightly, seeing my uniform half-drenched. "You shouldn't be out in this weather." "Part of the job," I said, but my voice cracked a little when our eyes met. She motioned for me to step in. "Come on, before you melt." Her apartment felt warmer this time. Jazz again, but softer, like background memory. The smell of coffee filled the air. There was an open notebook on the table beside her glasses and a few scattered sheets covered in handwriting. "Still working?" I asked. "Always," she said, smiling faintly. "Deadlines don't care about the weather." Her tone was casual, but there was something in it. Something tired, familiar. I knew that kind of exhaustion, the one that sits behind the eyes and never leaves no matter how much you sleep. She handed me a towel and our fingers brushed. Just like before. And just like before, neither of us pulled away fast enough. I sat for a second longer than I should have, towel in hand, dripping water on her rug. She didn't seem to mind. She watched me with that same quiet attentiveness, like she was studying a thought she hadn't yet decided to say aloud. "You're quiet today," she said softly. "I don't want to interrupt your work." "You're not." The rain pressed harder against the windows. I could see the reflection of both of us in the glass, her seated, composed, me standing behind her, uncertain. Something in the space between us felt charged, fragile. She reached for her mug, and for a second her hand trembled again. I noticed. She noticed me noticing. "I'm fine," she whispered quickly. "I didn't say you weren't." We both smiled, but it didn't erase the tension. It just made it more obvious. Her phone buzzed then. A name flashed on the screen. She turned it face down before I could read it. The air shifted, like the rain had suddenly moved inside the room. "I should probably," I started. "Yeah," she interrupted, standing. But neither of us moved. Her eyes met mine, and for a long suspended moment, there was no sound, no rain, no jazz, no city outside. Just her breathing, steady but uneven. My hand moved halfway toward hers. I didn't even think about it. Just the pull of something I didn't fully understand. And then she said it, quiet but firm. "You should go now." So I did. But only my body left that room. Days passed. I told myself it was over, that whatever thread had been spinning between us had finally snapped that night when she said, "You should go now." But sometimes, when I was out on deliveries, I'd catch the smell of rain on pavement and feel it tug again. Then one afternoon she called. Her voice was steady, careful. "June, I'm sorry to ask this, but could you help me carry something? The boxes are too heavy." I should have said no. I didn't. When I got there, the sky was overcast again. Her apartment door was already open. Inside, the air smelled faintly of dust and coffee grounds. Books were stacked on the floor. A framed photo turned face down on the counter. "I didn't mean to bother you," she said, brushing hair from her face. "I just didn't know who else to ask." "It's fine," I said, lifting one of the boxes. "What are these?" "Old manuscripts," she said quietly. "Things I should have thrown out years ago." I placed the box by the shelf, but she didn't move. She just stood there, arms folded, staring at the scattered papers like they might bite. "Bad memories?" I asked. Her lips twitched, somewhere between a smile and a sigh. "Just things that remind me I used to believe in something." The words hung in the air, soft, bitter, naked. I didn't know how to answer, so I didn't. Instead, I looked at her hands. They were trembling slightly again, though she kept them still against her sides. "Hannah," it slipped out before I could stop it. She looked up. "You remembered my name. Hard to forget." Silence followed, the kind that stretches, folds in on itself. I wanted to say something, anything, but everything felt too heavy to touch. "You shouldn't come here so often," she said suddenly, her tone softer than the words deserved. "People might get the wrong idea." "Do you think it's wrong?" She didn't answer, just turned toward the window, where the light was dimming. I could see her reflection beside mine. Two people standing too close, pretending they weren't. "What are we doing?" I finally asked. Her eyes found mine again. There was no anger, no shame, just exhaustion. "I don't know. Maybe nothing. Maybe too much." Her voice broke a little on the last word. I stepped closer without meaning to. For a second I thought she'd let me, that the space between us might finally dissolve. But she didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't blink. Just stood there, holding herself still, as if letting me in would break something she'd spent years rebuilding. "I should go," I whispered. She nodded, her face unreadable. As I turned to leave, she said my name, barely audible. I stopped, waiting for something that never came. She didn't say anything, just looked at me, like she was already mourning something we never even had. I didn't see her for almost 2 weeks. No deliveries, no phone calls. The silence felt deliberate, like she'd decided something and didn't want me to know what. Then one evening, I found a small envelope taped to my apartment door. My name written neatly across the front. June inside was a folded note. If you're free tomorrow, come by around 7. I could use some help again. H. Just like that. No explanation. No apology. When I arrived, her apartment was dim, the air scented with rain and candle wax. She was sitting on the floor by a pile of books, hair undone, a half-empty glass of wine beside her. You came, she said, voice softer than usual. You asked, I replied. She smiled faintly. I didn't think you would. Something in her tone, almost relief, almost regret, made my chest tighten. We worked in silence, rearranging the books she said she'd finally decided to keep. I noticed the photo frame on her shelf again, this time upright. A man stood beside her in it, older, kind eyes, arm draped around her shoulder. Your husband, I asked quietly. Was, she corrected. Her fingers brushed the glass. He passed away 4 years ago. Heart failure. I froze, unsure if I should say I was sorry, or if that word would just sound empty. She filled the silence herself. People assume time makes things easier, she said. But sometimes it just makes the quiet harder to bear. Her words hit deeper than I expected. Maybe because I knew that quiet, the kind that follows loss, even if what you lost wasn't a person but a version of yourself. She looked up at me then, eyes shimmering under candlelight. You remind me of him sometimes, she said softly. Because I deliver boxes? I tried to joke, but my voice came out too thin. She smiled, but it didn't last. No, because you listen. The room felt smaller then, like the walls were leaning in. I didn't know what to do with my hands. I just stood there, watching her trace the rim of her wine glass, her fingers trembling slightly. I shouldn't have called you, she whispered. But you did. Because it's easy with you, she said, finally meeting my gaze. Too easy. And that scares me. I wanted to tell her I understood, that it scared me too. But before I could speak, she took a slow breath, deep, steady, like she hadn't allowed herself to breathe freely in years. And then, for the first time, she looked at me without fear. No walls, no hesitation, just truth. We didn't speak for a long time after that night. Not because something broke, but because something finally settled between us, heavy and fragile at the same time. Still, I found myself outside her door again one evening, without a package, without a reason. Just there. When she opened the door, she didn't look surprised. Maybe she'd been expecting me. Or maybe she'd just stopped pretending she wasn't. You're drenched, she said quietly. It had started raining again, the kind of thin, persistent drizzle that seemed to follow us both around. Yeah, I said. Didn't notice. She stepped aside, wordlessly letting me in. The same soft light, the same faint jazz in the background. The same sense that time slowed down in this space. She handed me a towel, then sat down on the couch. I stood there for a moment, unsure where to place myself. Why did you come? She asked, not looking at me. I don't know, I said truthfully. Maybe because it feels easier to breathe here. That made her smile. Small, tired, real. I don't know what this is, she murmured, eyes fixed on her hands. You're too young. I'm too complicated. Everything about this should feel wrong, but... She stopped. But it doesn't, I finished. Her eyes met mine. For once, there wasn't a wall of caution behind them. Just exhaustion, honesty, and something dangerously close to tenderness. I sat down beside her, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from her skin, but not enough to touch. The silence between us wasn't tense anymore. It was full. She leaned back, head resting on the cushion, eyes half closed. You should go before I say something I can't take back. I'm not in a hurry, I whispered. The rain outside thickened. The jazz faded into static. My heartbeat filled the spaces between sounds. I didn't move closer. Neither did she. But something shifted anyway, something quiet, inevitable. Her hand brushed against mine, barely touching. Just skin meeting skin, like an accident that felt too intentional. She didn't pull away this time. We stayed like that, not speaking, not explaining, just breathing in rhythm. There was no confession, no cinematic kiss. Just two people sitting in the same storm, finally not running from it. I don't know how long we stayed like that. Maybe minutes, maybe forever. When she finally looked at me again, her expression was soft. Not sad, not afraid, just open. She didn't say she loved me, but she let her guard down, and that was louder than any "I love you" ever could be. It's strange how quiet life feels after something changes. Not louder, not emptier, just different. It's been months since that night at her apartment. The one where we didn't confess, didn't promise, didn't label anything. We just sat there, breathing the same air, letting silence say what words couldn't. Sometimes, I still deliver in her neighborhood. I see her name in the system every now and then, but I don't ring the bell. I leave the box at the door, step back, and watch her silhouette move behind the frosted glass. We don't talk much now. Maybe that's how it's supposed to be. Some connections aren't meant to last forever. They're meant to wake something up inside you. I think about her laugh, soft and low, like it was borrowed from a quieter world. I think about the way she used to pause mid-sentence, as if deciding whether truth was worth the risk. And I think about how she looked at me that night. Not as a stranger, not as a boy, not as a mistake, but as if I was something real. That look still follows me. She once said I reminded her of someone she lost. But maybe what she really meant was that I reminded her of the part of herself she buried with him. The part that could still hope, still want, still feel alive in small, inconvenient ways. And maybe she reminded me that love isn't about timing or labels or age. It's about recognition. About seeing someone and thinking, there you are. I learned that affection doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's a whisper between two people who never planned to meet, sitting in a quiet room while rain taps against the window. It's strange how something that never fully began can still feel like it changed everything. Now, when I close my eyes at night, I don't replay her voice like I used to. It's still there, soft, echoing, but it doesn't ache anymore. It just lingers, like a reminder that some silences are sacred. I still hear her words sometimes, the first ones she ever said to me. Don't rush. I didn't understand it then. Now I do. Some moments aren't meant to be chased. They're meant to be felt and then released. I didn't just fall for an older woman. I fell into something rare, something true. And I hope, if you're listening, you find something like that too. Sparkles, if the story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?